Hey, Nikki here with Beauty Jador and Aviano Bags talking about leather. More specifically, can you use a home sewing machine to sew leather and to use my patterns to sew leather on your home sewing machine? And the answer to that question, and I say it all the time, is yes, you can. It's all going to depend on the weight of your leather. Now, if you want a bag with stability that's very firm, you're using a 4, 5, 6 ounce leather. No, you cannot sew this on a home sewing machine. You're going to have to stick to leather that's suede, that's soft. You know, I have wool that I've sewn that's thicker than this on a home sewing machine. But you can use this on a home sewing machine. We have some of this, so it's significantly lighter. Now, some machines, my Bernina is pretty good with sewing with thicker leather. You're also going to have to take into consideration, you need to make sure you're sewing with the proper needle. That's so important. And you're going to have to use at least a 4-inch stitch length. So you're going to need a longer stitch length, the proper needle, but yes, you can. But I do have an option for you that is not going to completely break the bank. So I got this machine, which is a hand cranked sewing machine. There's several names for them. It's hand cranked, it's like leather shoe making machine, yada, 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 yada. But we all have seen this machine, or a lot of us have seen this machine, and it is $99 whole on Amazon. And I wanted to play around with it, mess around with it to see if it was even worth it, to see how it works, if it works, yada, yada, yada. So I have been using it sporadically for the past 6 months just so that I can get a better idea. Is this worth purchasing? Is it worth the headache? And I think the answer to that question is yes, it is. But you have to take into consideration, when you get this machine, it is not like a Bernina or a Sellrite or was it Titman Boss? It's not like those. It is literally a medieval machine. You are going to have to crank this thing. Although it does have an option, and I've seen them all over YouTube, where you can put a motor on this one. So my advice is, prior to kind of like going all in, buying it, getting the motor, get it, play with it for a while to see if it's something that you like to use. But I will say that if you want to get into bag making and you want to use a heavier leather, this machine is perfect for it. Now, out of the box, I will tell you, the machine comes with, and I'll pin it and also link everything that I'm talking about. I'll link it down below as well. But out of the box, this machine comes with a stand that will do nothing. It will literally tip over because this is pretty heavy. And the stand is very flimsy. I don't even know why they did it. I have no idea. But what you can do is, and I'll show you the stand that I made with just leftover wood that I had in my basement, but it works. All I need to do is make sure I mount it. Now, I have not mounted it yet because I am going to change my office around and I just haven't decided what I'm going to do with it. But in the meantime, I do want to kind of go over like some of the pros and cons of this. So I did take notes. So let's see. Now, I have been using it since around February time frame, just to kind of get a lot more familiar with the machine and, you know, just kind of like work out all the kinks. This is not my primary machine, but when I need to get kind of like up in the crevices of leather, this is perfect. It really is, because it has this cylinder arm, which my machine that I use does not have one. And I'm still on the fence about purchasing. I'm not on the fence. I'm trying to decide which one I'm going to purchase. But this is really doing the job. So just kind of some of the highlights that I found with this. It has a walking foot, which is perfect, especially working with leather. But I will tell you this, out of the box, this here, this is the foot. Underneath the foot here, you have kind of like these grooves. Now, these grooves will destroy your leather. So there's two options. There's possibly more than two, but there's two options. You can do what I did, which is just take this off, use a fine grit sander, and just sand it down. So when it goes over your leather, it doesn't leave this indentation, it doesn't destroy your leather. You also have the option of dipping this in the rubber. You can get that on Amazon as well. It's just like rubber. You dip it really quickly, take it out, let it dry, and it's a smooth surface. You have that option. Also, this is rotating. So depending on the size of your project that you're working on, if you need to turn the presser foot around, let's see if you can see this good enough. And I am going to change the angle so that you can see better when I start to sew, but I hope you can see this. Let me go ahead and kind of move this down a bit. Okay, so you have this option where you can turn it around. So if you're sewing in this direction, you can keep the presser foot here. If you need to turn it, if your project is really large, you can do that as well. That's really nice. And it's really crude. You just simply like turn it around. Let's see. Of course, I mentioned the cylinder arm. I'm looking at my notes here just so that I won't forget. What else? We went over the stand. So a great thing too is it's not just one stitch length. You have the option to change the stitch length. So from something small to something much larger, which is again really helpful. Especially for me when I am switching from one machine to the next, I want my stitch lengths to be the exact same. So it appears that I'm sewing on the same machine. And this is perfect. And once I start sewing this, I will show you how to change that. When the machine gets out of the box and you get it home and you plop it down and you open it up, it's covered in oil. So just take a rag with some alcohol, go all over the machine and just clean it down really nicely. Another thing, you will need a piece of like a magnet. So on this wheel, which I'll show you in a minute, it's this big wheel. I just throw pieces of magnet on there because in order to get like the bobbin case and the bobbin out of here, you will need to use like some pliers and or these little pinchers and a magnet. But I'll show you that. But I think that's it as of now. So in a minute, I will show you some of the replacement pieces. I always recommend that you have on hand because they will break. I've had this for 6 months and they've broken already. But you can get them, and I'll link it on Amazon for like 25 bucks for a whole set. Come in really handy, especially when you're in a crunch and you need it. So I'm gonna go ahead and change position of camera and then show you how it sews. Okay, so we have here the leather that we're gonna sew with. And again, like I said, if you're trying to sew through leather that's this thick, and just to kind of give you perspective, this is a leather gauge so that you know like how thick the leather is. This is it's like 2.5 millimeters. So we're sewing this together. So that's going to be like 5 millimeters. This is really thick. It'll never get through just like a regular home sewing machine. So another thing I mentioned before was some parts that you need to have on hand, I think, is going to be the bobbin case. You need a few of these. They tend to get burrs on them, and once that happens, it breaks the thread like consistently. So you don't want that headache. Okay, so you want to have these as well as, it's called a chassis. I think I'm pronouncing that right. But you want to have these on hand as well, because this, which has happened to me several times, it may break off. And this is sitting in here. So this is underneath the bobbin case. So it's going to sit here, and then you're going to have your bobbin inside. So the bobbin is also really small, and not gonna lie, it's kind of a pain in the butt to wind. I just kind of end up winding it by hand, because when I do it that way, it's nice, it's straight, and it's really taut, so it doesn't snag as often as when I do it with the machine. But you're going to need quite a few of them because they're so small. You don't get as much thread, and depending on what type of the weight of the thread you're going to use as well. But I would always say just have like 5, 6, 7 of them ready when you're starting on a project. But I will again put the link down because they have it in a package where you can get all these replacement parts, several of them for like $20. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So I am sewing these two thick pieces of leather together. And as a reminder, this isn't bolted down, so it may be a little wonky. But once you have it bolted down, it's so much better. But let me also tell you what I did here. I just took this wood, which was just hanging out in my basement, and I cut the wood, I sanded it. I used this as kind of like a little pedestal, and I screwed that in right here, this screw here. I probably would have done it a little different. I probably would have made it straight, made the board maybe a little larger, but this is perfectly fine. And so you're going to need a piece here in the back that's going to actually hold the weight of the machine. Then you're going to need another piece here to stabilize it, and then of course your board. If you're unable to do it, someone will easily be able to put this together. And there's tons of tutorials online that will show you, different ways to do it. This was the easiest for me and the quickest, so there we have it. All right, so again, you have the presser foot, and you have the lever that raises and lowers the presser foot. So if you see this little piece under here, it's a screw. Let me move it closer so you can see. It's next to this, but it's under here. Let me tilt that. You see that screw under there? That is where you're going to change the stitch length. So let's go ahead and show you how this works. We'll put these two pieces together. And you simply turn. I mean, you cannot get any easier than this. Raise this. It's a good stitch too. It is a really good stitch. And this is the bottom. So that was just a general length stitch, and I'll show you how. Let's just go ahead and do a couple of these. Okay, so you're going to turn this counterclockwise, and so as you turn it, if you're turning it counterclockwise, it's moving the screw up, and while it's moving the screw up, it's making the stitch shorter. And I'll show you when I finish this. And now what we're going to do is we're going to move it again counterclockwise to make it even smaller. Alright, and now let's turn this. And now I'm going to lower it. So I'm going to turn it and it's going to make it larger. So you can see we started with the regular stitch length, and then we got smaller, and then we got larger as we went around. So you do have options. So in a nutshell, would I recommend this machine? Absolutely. I mean, it's 99 bucks. Mess around with it, play around with it until you perfect it in a way that's comfortable for you. So if you have any questions, any comments, concerns, let me know. Happy sewing.